What she and the Tory party have said is that Scotland is an equal partner within the United Kingdom. Actually, the phrase, not from Theresa May, but from her predecessor, was Scotland should lead the United Kingdom, not leave the United Kingdom. But the phrase equal partnership has been used by the Conservative Party, that Scotland is an equal partner within the United Kingdom. If you're an equal partner within the United Kingdom, then your views on something as substantial and far-reaching as BrExit deserve to be taken on account on an equal basis.
Well,
what Theresa May said, of course,
it was one person, one vote in Scotland, as it was everywhere else in the country. A Scottish person was equal to everywhere else.
But Scotland is a country, not a county. And the Scottish nation voted decisively to stay within the European Union. But of course it was Theresa May who said explicitly the week after she became Prime Minister, when she went to visit Nicola Sturgeon in Scotland, she said she wanted an agreed position across the United Kingdom. Now, you can't have an agreed position unless you're prepared to consult people on an equal basis.
Well, she's consulting, but I don't think it was ever understood that the Scottish administration would have equal say in an issue of customs union, immigration policy, foreign policy, international treaties, as the government of the United Kingdom, in which the people of Scotland have a large shaping part, because they vote in UK general elections, obviously.
The vote in favour of staying in the European Union was 62%.
Right.
The vote in favour of the United Kingdom was 55%. Far more people in Scotland, by majority and percentage, wanted to stay within Europe as wanted to stay within the United Kingdom. And as you'll remember, in 2014, one of the cardinal arguments of the No campaign, though people argue against independence, was that we'd stay in Europe if we voted against Scottish independence. Now, I know it's ridiculous now, it looks absurd, but that was one of the key arguments of the No campaign. And more to the point, of course, Nicola Sturgeon, the Scottish First Minister, stood in a manifesto commitment last year and was re-elected on the basis that if Scotland was dragged out of Europe against the will of the Scottish people, then the Scottish Parliament would have the right to call an independence referendum.
Well, that brings me, I suppose, to what is the big question for the SNP today. It's got to be the big question for the SNP. Why don't you just call a referendum? You're not going to learn anything between now and BrExit. We know what the British government's policy on BrExit is. It's been stated by Theresa May as clearly as anything. We know that Scotland is not going to remain in the single market as the Scottish government hopes. We know that Britain is not even going to try and stay in the single market. What else do you need to trigger a referendum?
Well, let's go through the parliamentary process as far as the single market's concerned. The UK government has still to respond officially to the Scottish Government's compromise proposal that if England is determined to leave the single market, then Scotland could stay in the single market. There's working examples elsewhere in Europe where this is the case. Why shouldn't that be considered as a reasonable proposal? But if at the end of the day, Theresa May is not interested in staying in the single market, she's not interested in respecting the wishes of the people of Scotland to stay within the single market, maintain jobs and investment, then of course, if she flings down that gauntlet, then I fully expect Nicola Sturgeon to pick it up.
Well, then we do expect a referendum, because she's not going to give you different status within the single market. There are all sorts of practical challenges and difficulties around free movement of that. Well, but the difficulty is that we won't have...
Let me just examine that point. That is not true. There actually is a working example in Europe at the present moment of a country which has a monetary and a customs union with another country, and one is within the single market and one isn't. That's Liechtenstein and Switzerland. If you intend to implement control of labour at the workplace through a green card system, as Theresa May does, there is no impediment whatsoever to Scotland being within the single market while England is not. It is a practical proposition. It is, of course, has complexities, but anything about BrExit has complexities. And this is a practical proposition. So you dismiss this. Why shouldn't the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom pay attention to the wishes of the Scottish people, the Scottish Parliament and the Scottish Government?
I'm, I suppose, curious as to why you're offering this rather complicated, and it would be complicated, this rather complicated settlement when there's a much simpler one facing you, which is to call a referendum and just let the Scottish people decide. Is it the UK? Is it the EU? What is What is it that the Scottish people want? Why are you? Is it because the polls are against you that you're not going to do it?
Right. Okay. Well, let's take these points in turn. It's nothing like as complicated as the Brexit process. Believe me, that will be complicated. There's already going to be, we know, special deals for Northern Ireland, for the Channel Islands, for Gibraltar, perhaps even for the City of London, for the car industry in Sunderland. And if there can be a special deal for the car industry in Sunderland, then I think there might be a special deal for the nation of Scotland. But if the Prime Minister at the end of the day doesn't want to accede to any of these reasonable compromise proposals from Nicola Sturgeon, then as Nicola Sturgeon has rightly said, an independence referendum becomes very likely and will take place within the next 2 years. And as for the support for it, there's been 16 polls since the Brexit vote in the United Kingdom. 15 of these polls have shown support at a higher level than the 45% recorded in September 2014.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a poll that 62% of Scottish people don't want another independent referendum.
Yes, I saw that poll as well. The question was, wanted a referendum in 2017. I would vote against the referendum this year, as indeed would Nicola Sturgeon. Nicola Sturgeon's proposition in these circumstances, with her compromise proposal rejected, is to have a referendum within the negotiating period of 2 years.
Would you accept that if there's another referendum, that really is it? That's best of three. You can't even win on a best of three at that stage. So if it's 2-0, it's over. And this time, really, it is over for 30, 50 years. It can't come back again for decades.
Well, let me say this. If the Prime Minister decides to ignore the, I think, over substantial demand in the UK as a whole to stay within the single marketplace, if she then decides to ignore the wishes of Scotland to maintain our 1,000-year connection and history with Europe as a European nation, in that context, if there's a referendum within the next 2 years, then the yes side will win.